that you supported from Senator Kane that would be a little bit different now that we're deeper and know more about some of these strikes in the Caribbean?
I think more people are coming around to be concerned about what's going on when you have Lindsey Graham, the Wall Street Journal, and other Republicans saying that the second strike, bombing people who are shipwrecked or clinging to wreckage, that would be illegal in the words of people who are very supportive of what the president's doing. That's a whole new scenario. So I think we've entered into uncharted territory here. I think there's a broad consensus that it's illegal to kill people who are clinging to wreckage. I think there's still some question whether the initial bombing is illegal as well. I think that you can't really just say, well, we're at war, we're not declaring war, and Congress is not going to be allowed to vote on this, but because we're at war, we say these people are combatants, we can do whatever we want, including killing them the first time, or if they're still floating around after we've tried to kill them once, killing them again. I think even the administration knows they made a big mistake here, because a couple months later, what did they do? Then they rescued people. But even that leads to more questions. The people they rescued, they didn't prosecute. They didn't say, well, we scooped up 2 people, we scooped up their guns and their weapons and the drugs that were floating on the boat. No mention of any kind of drugs or anything, no evidence, no interrogation. Normally, you'd interrogate people all the way up the line. We just got a letter back from the Coast Guard today. Their overall statistics are that 25% of boats that are boarded don't have drugs on them. We now have specific information from the Coast Guard that of the boats captured by the Coast Guard before we started the bomb them to smithereens campaign, in the traditional sense, when the Coast Guard captured boats off of Venezuela, 21% of them did not have drugs. So the idea that we're just blowing up boats where historically the rate is 21% of them are not even smugglers is outrageous. Hopefully this is going to unify the American people to stand up and say, killing people willy-nilly is against the law.
But Senator,
What do you
think of the administration?
Responsibility is it Secretary
Hegseth?
Have you seen any evidence that there were survivors on these boats, on this particular boat? Have you seen any evidence that there were survivors? What intelligence have you seen?
I've been offered no briefings, and I think that's purposeful because I've been skeptical of this. So no briefings have been offered to me. We are asking for them. We are supportive of the Armed Services Committee looking into this, but this has been very selective in briefings that have been given to people, primarily given to people who are already apologists for the administration.
And do you have confidence in the Defense Secretary at this point?
I'm very, very concerned about an order that would say, kill them all, kill them, after they've already been wounded, after they're drifting apart. But for some people, this is distinctly different, the second strike. I think both strikes are actually illegal. I don't think you can just name people and say, well, they've got drugs. Well, where's the proof? That's an allegation. And these people are 2,000 miles away. People don't realize these outboard boats have no capability of reaching America. Take them like 20 stops to refuel to get up here. In all likelihood, none of these boats are coming to America. It's a completely made up and false sense that, oh, we're at war, we can do whatever we want. But if Congress wants to vote on it, oh, no, we're not at war. So they're at war if they could do whatever they want with no oversight. But if Congress were to get involved with oversight, it's not a real war. It's just a war where we name people who we don't like. We call them terrorists, and then we kill them. And then if we see them floating around in the ocean, we then re-bomb them. It's a crazy.
It sounds to me like you're calling into question other strikes that have been taking place, that those could be determined to be unlawful. So do you support broadening this investigation beyond that September 2nd strike? And who ultimately bears responsibility? Is it the Secretary of Defense or is it the Admiral?
I think what unifies people is the second strike, and I think that's what's going to bring people together. When you have people from Lindsey Graham to the Wall Street Journal saying that the second strike is illegal according to our the laws of our military contact, even in times of war, it's illegal. So the first attack, so our question is, are we at war? And if we're at war, should Congress vote? That's a first issue. The second issue, though, is even if you accept the first strikes, most people are saying the second strikes aren't. I don't like to see political figures pointing their finger at military figures. Military people take orders, and there's a question about, when they don't take orders, whether things are legal or not legal. But in this sense, it looks to me like they're trying to pin the blame on somebody else and not them. There's a very distinct statement that was said on Sunday. Secretary Hegseth said he had no knowledge of this and it did not happen. It was fake news. it didn't happen. And then the next day from the podium at the White House, they're saying it did happen. So either he was lying to us on Sunday or he's incompetent and didn't know it had happened. Do we think there's any chance that on Sunday, the Secretary of the Defense did not know there had been a second strike? So as a country, are we just going to let people lie to us to our face? We're going to let them kill people who they call enemies anytime in the world. We're going to let them, like when someone is stranded and holding on to the scraps of a boat, put a second bomb on them. I think it's outrageous and should be universally condemned.
Senator, do you think the Democrats?
Oh yeah, somebody's head is gonna roll. You know somebody's head is gonna roll on this bullshit because it's illegal. They know it's illegal. They trying to throw old boy under the bus, Bradley under the bus. Bradley saying, I ain't going. Y'all ain't finna throw me under the bus. Because if there's videotape of these people clinging to the side of the boat, wow. Has Trump been lying? Of course Trump been lying. Of course he knows what happened. Of course he knows. This is another thing I came up with. Check this out. That was the Republican, Rand Paul. These are the Epstein. These are pictures of the Epstein house. Of course he lied. Of course Donald Trump lied. He lied. He knows the truth. He knows exactly what happened. He knows that they did the pure order. They know that. He knows that. This is pictures of the Epstein Island. Epstein Islands and the house. Footage of the Epstein Island. It was a big beach. It was a gigantic place. So they showing the pictures of the Epstein's Island. So it is what it is. I guess this may have been released, I don't know, today or whatever, but the Republicans are in trouble. They really, really, really are in trouble. Specifically, if they hide these Epstein files, specifically if they continue to hide what's going on in Congress with these people committing murder. Yeah, we're going to cry, all right. We're going to cry all day, every day. As soon as we get rid of this president, we're going to cry as much as we can. Some people even have bottles waiting to be popped. Waiting to be popped. It was a nice island. This was a nice place. It was a big place. Plenty of these folks got up here in this Epstein Island. This was a big, huge place full of people. Oh yeah, we're gonna be done with this president soon enough. Either he gonna get a dirt nap or we gonna be done with him. One of the two. More than likely, we gonna be done. Well, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. The light at the end of the tunnel is November 2026. Okay, November 20th, 2026. And this is his friend's house. Okay, so let's listen to this one guy. He's going to give us the information about the Democrats, about the thing we had last night, the
We're going to
Race.
do our first post-mortem of the 7th Congressional District in Tennessee. So we can see that Matt Van Epps won over Afton Bain. It wasn't a huge margin, but it wasn't a small margin either. It was a pretty healthy margin, but for the Republicans, it was a lower margin. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over the counties. We're going to go over the early vote numbers versus election day numbers. And then we're going to compare this to the special elections that we had earlier this year in Florida, in the 1st and 6th Congressional District in Florida, and kind of see how this balances out. Because overall, this election that we had yesterday, the Democrats had some good news, they had some great news, but then they had some bad news. And we need to delve into the numbers to see where this all pans out. So this election was kind of all over the place. Now, before we start, if you do enjoy this kind of content, looking at election numbers, talking about elections and so on, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for the notifications for my videos. If you want to do a one-time donation to show your appreciation, you can press the super thanks down below for a one-time donation, or you can become a member of my Patreon or a member of this channel. If you become a member of my Patreon, you also will get access to some of the special videos that I do on my election history channel. So I also have a channel about election history. Thank you all very much who have been supporters of this channel. This is a viewer-driven channel, and it is your help that makes this go. So thanks to all the Patrons, members, people who have given super thanks, and all of you who just interact with the video. Thank you all very much. Now, let's go ahead and go into the election results. And if we look at the election map compared to what we had last time, there isn't much of a difference. We just see the margins going down. So we can see here, we can see Afton Bain doing quite well in Nashville and Davidson County. But then in Montgomery County, it was significantly close. When it came to early votes, Afton Bain actually had the lead in early votes, but then Van Epps was able to take the county as soon as the election day votes were calculated. Now, if we go ahead and go down to here, we can see the swings. We can see all the arrows going sharply to the left and to the Democrats. So you can see Davidson County had a 20% Democratic swing, and these are all compared to the presidential election year, or at least the congressional vote. Well, no, it says the presidential vote from last time. So you can see even the smallest of counties, Wayne County, had a 6.9% Democratic swing. All of these are Democratic swings. All of these are huge Democratic swings. So these numbers look really, really good for the Democrats. So I do want to mention really quick before we continue the Emerson College poll, because this thing was kind of spot on. So we can see it said Matt Van Epps with 48% to Afton Bain's 46%, with 5% undecided. Now that 5%, they asked that 5%, if you are going to vote in this, if you have to decide who would you vote for, it broke 2-1 for Van Epps, which showed that possibly late breakers on election day were going to go for Van Epps. And we really do see this in the results, because in the results, we see a lot of these counties, Montgomery County, definitely, that was blue, and then it turned red as the election day votes came in. So that is where the election stands. And that poll was pretty good within the margin of error and everything. So now let's go ahead and go up to the graphics that I have here. And let's look at Tennessee's 7th Congressional District by voting method. And this is, if you're the Democrats, you have some good news and you have some bad news. So here we have it right here. Let's first look at the composition of the vote. So 53% of the vote was on election day, and 47% of the vote was early voting. Okay, so that was the composition that we had. Let's first look at early votes, where Afton Bain actually won it 54.3% to 45.7%. So she was actually able to get the lead. And then once, if you noticed that last night on the live stream, once all the early vote was in, she was in the lead. Davidson County really gave her that push in early voting. The problem for the Democrats, and especially what I just mentioned with those late breaking people going 2-1 for Van Epps, you can see on election day, Van Epps dominated with 62.3% of the vote to Afton Bain's 37.7%. That was 53% of the people voting. the election day issue is a huge issue for the Democrats. Now, I thought maybe it wasn't going to be that big of a bump because there were a lot of people in the primary, Democratic primary, who ended up voting on election day. It ended up being the case that it was a pretty decent bump for Van Epps. So the Democrats have, ever since Jim Messina from the Obama campaign said, oh, we just treat election day like any other day. You can't do that. When 53% of the vote comes in on this one day compared to all
shit.
the early voting before, you can't treat election day just
Oh shit. What the hell? All right, stop doing that.
like, any other day. You have to treat it special. And I still feel that the Democrats do not
Why do I keep
have a good plan to get out votes on election day. Which, what does that mean? That usually means they don't have a good plan to get those late breakers over to their side. They really, really need to improve on that. All right, now let's go ahead and go over to the next graphic. Now, this next graphic is comparing how Afton Bain did to the two special elections we had for Congress in Florida earlier in the year, how big the swing was, and what composition of the vote was it compared to 2024. So what I mean by the composition of the vote compared to 2024 is saying, let's say that 100,000 people voted somewhere in 2024, and then 50,000 people voted this time. That means 50%. This number that you see here would be 50% of the 2024 voters voted this time, as far as raw numbers, not the actual voters, because we have people who die, we have people who are newly registered voters and whatnot. So if we look at the actual increase in Democratic votes, Afton Bain actually had the lowest swing. She only had a 7% swing. Now, if we look at the first congressional district, this was the one that Matt Gaetz left, we can see that the Democrat, Gay Vallimont, had a 8.7% increase, 1.7% more than Afton Bain. If we look at Josh Wheel, who ran against Randy Fine, and it is kind of funny that people on the national stage are seeing who Randy Fine is. We knew how crazy this guy was in Florida when he was in the state legislature. So, welcome to Florida's hell. But you can see Josh Wheel in this increased the Democratic number by 9.2%. So Afton Bain's swing wasn't stronger than what we had in those other races. Okay, now this 2024 vote is the comparison to the previous congressional election vote. This is where Afton Bain has a little bit better. As you can see here, 55.8% of the vote yesterday was compared to the 2024 vote. So that means of the 2024 vote, 55% of that turned out. So that's over 50%. That's a really good number. So even though the Florida numbers had higher swings, they also had lower turnout. And it does just seem to be, at least in these congressional districts, as the turnout increases, the vote becomes more and more Republican. But so the bad news was the election day stuff. The good news is that you have a swing of 7%. But here, if you're the Democrats, is the great news. So here I have it compared to 2024. Now let's take all these races and compare them to 2022, the last midterm. As you can see Vallimont at 57.7, Josh Wheel at 65.1, but Afton Bain, and this isn't her vote, this is the amount of total votes cast in the 7th congressional district, is nearly identical to a midterm election. Okay, so we still might have some more coming in. Maybe there's some late mail-in ballots or some that are missing that might adjust the numbers, who knows? But what this says right here, where you see where it says Afton Bain 99.5, What that means is of the people who voted in 2022 in a midterm election, that number this time was 95%, or excuse me, 99.5% of the 2022 number. So what does this mean? That this means that Afton Bain had a 7% swing in what is essentially a midterm election, because this is an exact replica of what a midterm election is going to be. So this means that maybe we can expect the Democrats to have between a 5 to 7% swing throughout the United States in these congressional districts, maybe. But the fact that these numbers,
This is the geekiest guy. This is the geekiest guy ever who does polls. He's been spot on the money in all the polls. This is my go-to guy. This guy been on top of it.
are almost exactly the same as far as turnout as a
When he says the Democrats are going to win, I believe him.
midterm election, and you have the swing there, means that a huge chunk of people who voted in the midterm a few years ago, 3 years ago, switched over to the Democratic side. Okay. Or maybe people identify as independents, just said, we're not split anymore. We're heavily going toward Afton Bain. So this is a huge number for the Democrats. Now, overall, if you're the Democrats, this looks like a really good result. Okay. It wasn't a win, and the Republicans are just going to sit there and say, oh, well, you lost. Yeah. But you guys, like I said, it was like you guys are like the New England Patriots and brag about beating Dr. Phillips High School by a touchdown. Okay. It's not that impressive of a win, but the fact that this is actually replicating a midterm election indicates that we could be on the verge of seeing a 7% swing in other congressional districts. So like if we take Don Bacon's seat and other seats that are these very, very close ones from 2024, those are going to flip. I mean, right now, the Democrats are poised to really take over Congress and really take over it by a big chunk. All right. So that's all in today's video for the first postmortem. We'll see if any new data comes out in between now and whenever the new data comes out. I don't think there will be much, but if you're the Democrats, this is good. This is a great start. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are.
So I'm going to take him at his word, because he's a polling guy. I'm going to take him at his word. If he says poised to take over the House, I believe him. It is what it is. Hey, it is what it is. Okay. We got our last Crockett. What's going on with Crockett? What the hell she's talking about? What the hell happened?
That, everybody had a good time and it was stress-free. And for a moment, you could forget that who is president. So hoping all of that. I also know that so many people are really freaked out because I already said over and over that I would come up with a decision over Thanksgiving, because I do believe in prayer. I do believe in talking to the people that matter most in my family as they are impacted. And obviously, I'm really sifting through data and all kinds of stuff. And if you've seen some of my recent interviews, I've talked about how I really would love for there to be like this kind of great team of people that come together and make for a strong ticket in the state of Texas. So we have made it very public that on 12/8, which I said over and over and over, that I would make my decision public about what it is that I'm going to do. For those of you who haven't been keeping up with all the drama down in Texas with our lines, that kind of stuff, we won, and then Alito was like, not so fast. So the Supreme Court is supposed to make a decision anytime now about what these lines are going to look like. If it's going to be the lines that I currently have run in for the last 2 terms, or if they are going to be the very much racially gerrymandered lines as outlined in the 160-page opinion by a Trump appointee. Just saying. So we are going to hopefully get something from the Supreme Court soon, because again, that deadline to file, and no one knows where exactly they're supposed to run without actually being able to have something from the court about what the lines are going to be. Interesting news this week was that one of the California Republicans decided he's just going to run for Congress in Texas. Yes, you heard me right. And we will see how Republicans respond to, say, a Californian coming into Texas trying to run to get back to Congress. But that's a whole other issue, whole other drama. Right now, I was sitting on my phone and I was trying to figure out if the polls have closed yet in Tennessee. Many of you know that this special election is taking place with Afton Bain. She and I had did an event together. And we know that, basically like, you know what, let me look at the book, got it, and recorded a video. And the next thing you know, they want them court-martialed. Well, there's only one person that could be subject to it. They just make this whole outrage. How dare you? And then literally like a week and a half later, they're trying to point fingers because they know that the allegations of war crimes are real. I will tell you that I personally believe that there may be more than just kind of one incident that people should be looking into, because I don't know where it is okay to just consistently bomb or just blow up boats in the water just because. Like, I mean, it's just, yeah, no, that sounds like murder to me, but like, I don't know, maybe let's do some investigating. Maybe there's something more there. But just because you think somebody is a drug trafficker, it's not really how that works. I'm just saying, even if it's true, it's not how it works. And of course, we've heard allegations that a number of people that have been on some of these boats were legitimately like fishermen. So who knows, right? Because when you blow up all the evidence, it's a little difficult. So interestingly enough, the president then tried to throw Hegseth under the bus. And then Hegseth now is trying to throw other people under the bus. But y'all were just talking about those elected officials who have served our country valiantly, and then reminding people of their oath, because they are never to follow an illegal order. And now you're saying, well, if the order was illegal, it's y'all's fault because y'all fought. Like, it is crazy. And honestly, I just don't know how we got here. I don't know how we got to the point that people in this country could continue to support such idiocy and cruelty at every single turn. That is what they're doing. And I want to be clear. These types of moves do not make us safer at home. They actually make us a lot less safe. So it is important that no matter who you are, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And so I will applaud
this is Jasmine.
Those Republicans that have said, both in the House and the Senate, that it is time to investigate. I applaud them, because I've been waiting on Republicans to just kind of get to the place where they're like, right is right, wrong is wrong. Again, I continue to say over and over, a lot of this stuff isn't right versus left. It's right versus wrong. And the final point that I'll make before I'll go to some of y'all's questions, because I really just wanted to check in, because I've been MIA for a while and we had votes early today. So I had a little bit of time. So I wanted to check in with y'all. What was the last point I was going to make? I forgot now. I don't know, but I hope you're all checking and making sure you are registered to vote no matter where you are. Obviously, we know that they are trying to play crazy games.
When did somebody say something about an Afghan that shouldn't be here? He should have been here. He was vetted by your Trump. He was vetted by your Trump administration. What do you mean he shouldn't be here? He was let into the country legally by the Trump administration. What do you mean? I'm confused. Who said it was okay that he killed anybody? Nobody said it was okay. Y'all just be projecting way out of pocket, just way out of pocket.
Again, as we wait on the results for Tennessee 7, it was insane to hear that they were sending out these, I don't know if it was, I think they were sending out mailers of some sort. They were sending something that was in paper form out and or doing recordings saying the wrong election day to Democrats, like, hey, go vote for Afton, and giving them the wrong election day, while at the same time basically threatening Republicans to show.
Everybody knows that, Richard. But your administration, this presidential administration, the Trump administration, just vetted him in December. So they should have known he was radicalized if that was the case in December. Okay.
Show up and vote and saying everybody will know your record and doing this very aggressive stuff. So the Republicans have shown us more than once who they are. And until they decide to grow a backbone and again, just kind of stand for what's right and wrong, I think we're going to continue to be concerned about the economy. We're going to continue to be concerned about education and accessibility. As we know, they've decided to reclassify a number of professional degrees, or I should say declassify. That's the way I'm gonna say it. They decided to declassify a number of those degrees, devaluing those degrees after people have gone out and ascertained them, and limiting accessibility to those degrees by declassifying them, because then you aren't able to gain as much access to financial aid to get those degrees. So I'm going to see what questions we've got, and then I'm going to let y'all go. John is asking, what's a good way to convince someone to vote that doesn't see the point? This is a great question. So I think, number one, you should always know your audience. For those of you that don't know, I was a business major with an emphasis in finance, but I immediately went into marketing while I was going through law school. And as a business major, we always had to take marketing classes. And so one of the things that they always told you is your first job is to determine who your audience is. So number one, find out why is it that this person doesn't believe in voting.
Don't hate on Jasmine Crockett. Y'all just be hating because you don't like to hear the truth. Anybody who talks to y'all about your president and stands up to you, this president, and talks about this president like he's the clown that he is, y'all don't like him. She's the only one. She comes up and she talks about him like the clown that he is. So since he thinks she's a clown, she thinks he's a clown. It's fair play. He want to call her low IQ. She calls him low IQ. I think it's fair play. Don't call her low IQ. She probably smarter than most of y'all. Don't even go there.
Voting, maybe they don't know what they get with voting, right? So find out what their values are. Like, voting is about values and whether or not you want somebody that shares those values. So if John isn't concerned about affordability, then that may not be the way to go. But if he is concerned about affordability, then it is a great time and a great opportunity to explain to him that things are only more expensive because of.
Richard, you're really dumb. You're really dumb. You just don't like the way she talked to your president because your president is lowbrow. So he needs to be talked to the way he talks to her. You don't talk to her and tell her that you don't say that she's uneducated. That's the one thing you can't say. Just because somebody says something you don't like doesn't mean you call them names. You dispute what they're saying. You don't call them names, just come with the facts. Don't come with the bullshit, because a lot of y'all come with the bullshit.
These unilaterally invoked illegal tariffs that the president decided to engage in. And so some people would be like, okay, but he president, until we still got 3 years and some change. God bless us. Hallelujah. They may say, well, we still have him, but if you have a House and or a Senate that's like, player, that's our lane, and they decide to check him, then maybe we don't have to worry about this. So you can explain that. There are people that care about, things that are maybe a little bit closer to home, whether they are concerned about how certain businesses are zoned around them, right? Whether it's that shingles plant or whatever polluter is around them, like maybe it's that issue, maybe it's healthcare, right? And so talking about healthcare, but you have to find out what somebody's values are and what it is that matters to them. And then you have to connect the dots for them. I don't think that you should ever kind of go up to anybody and make them feel bad for like not really seeing the point, because part of like the goal right now is to make people feel helpless and hopeless. And you want to empower people. So, you know, I don't really believe in beating people over the head and be like, this is what you got to do, right? I think that it is more important that you really just educate them and connect the dots about what it is that they care most about and how electing the right or wrong person has the ability to truly impact their lives.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let's be clear, Steve Friedlander. It's you MAGA people who are always arguing about feelings. Always. You hate the gays, you hate the trans, you hate the browns, you hate the black, you hate the illegal immigrants, you hate the communists, you hate Mandami. That's all y'all do is bring hate. I don't even get it. It's amazing to me that every time you turn around, you all bring hate to the conversation. It's never a Democrat that brings hate to the conversation. It's always hate from the right side. You hate the gays, you hate the brown, hate the black, hate the trans, hate the homophobe, hate the Mandani, hate. That's all y'all do is hate. And you got the nerve to come over here talking about you Democrats, that's all y'all do is be y'all ignorant, y'all that no, you all are the ones that come over talking about the hate. You all are the ones who come over talking about the misinformation. You all are the ones that is always over here talking about what's a woman. Y'all like to see dudes in the bathroom. That's all y'all do is bring hate to the table. You never bring constructive argument. So don't come over here talking about us Democrats hating. We don't do the hating. It's all on your side. You've never seen one Democrat say, I hate anybody like y'all say, I hate the gay, hate the trans, hate the homos, hate the Islams, hate Nandami, hate blacks, hate brown. That's all y'all do is hate. It's all on y'all. All on y'all.
We've got
That's what we keep saying about y'all, Paul Thorny, that y'all need help. And maybe y'all need to get some help because y'all all zombies.
Marta wants to know what's happening with my.
Really, Steve Friedlander? Every person that you talk to that's a Republican says, I hate the gays, I hate the trans, I hate the brown, I hate the immigrants, I hate the Muslims. You're the ones who say that. See, they can't even take accountability for what they be saying in the chat. They can't even take accountability. That's why we don't like to talk to you. No, I'm sorry. We don't like to have debates with y'all because y'all never take accountability for what you say. Every person that's a Republican will jump in this chat talking about, you don't know what a man is. You don't know what a woman is. You don't know what they need to get out of my country. That's exactly what you say. That's exactly what you all say. Get out of my country. There's the gay people in the bathroom. We don't like the trans. All y'all say that. All of y'all say that. That is hate, Steve Friedlander. That's hate. All of y'all say that. You don't never hear no Democrats say that. So stop lying about Democrats.
My district. I have no idea, Marta. Child. Okay.
And quite frankly, there's nothing to debate when you talking about a girl in the bathroom, a dude in the bathroom. Every time you have go through some of my videos. That's all that all you MAGAs talk about. The gay, we don't like the gays. We don't like the trans. We don't want no men in the bathroom. We don't like you gay. We don't like X, Y, Z. We don't like Mandami. We don't like Muslims. We don't like Somalia. We don't like the brown people. We don't like the immigrants. All y'all say every day, all day. Don't come over here and try to gaslight us. Don't come over here and try to gaslight us about what you say.
My
y'all know what you say. All of y'all, all y'all MAGAs say the same thing.
District was preserved in its current state per an order that was handed down where it was a 2-1
It's hate, Andreas. That's all it is. It's hate.
majority in the 3-judge federal panel out of the El Paso court. So they said, listen, they run it on these lines until we go through the full kind of trial on all the issues. But preliminarily, it looks like this may deprive people of their voices. Okay. Then after that came out, the Republicans in Texas immediately filed an emergency motion to the Supreme Court, directly to Supreme Court.
Right?
And Alito says, well, wait a minute now, hold up. So right now, currently, we're on hold. We're waiting for an opinion from that court. There were responsive briefs that were due. Those briefs were due not this Monday, but last Monday. So the court has had those responsive briefs filed along with what we call like friend of the court briefs. Those were also filed as of not this Monday that just passed, but the prior Monday.
So we're waiting on the response from the gerrymandering, the illegal or sneaky gerrymandering that is going on with the Republicans, because they're trying to eliminate Democratic seats in Texas. So since they're trying to eliminate seats in Texas, they're going through with the bullshit map. But it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to be more seats that we win come November 2026. It just is what it is. Just they screwed themselves.
And we still do not have an order from the court on what lines we're running from. If we were to not have any order, I guess technically with the stay in place, that means that the new 5 seats that the Republicans stole would be what takes effect. But I don't know. And filing is 6 days away. Yeah, it is a wild time to be elected on the federal level in the state of Texas. And Juan is asking, what can we do with the election still a whole year away? And how can I know my vote is actually going to count? That is a very good question. So Juan, I don't know where you're from. Every state is a little different. So even though we'll have federal elections that are taking place all around the country, the elections themselves are administered by the states. And so every state, which is why we needed the Freedom to Vote Act, so that we could democratize this a little bit.
Don't call her dumb, Andreas. Beat her argument. Because then you sound dumb. Because you don't have any argument to beat her argument. None of you have any arguments to beat her argument. So you're the one who sounds dumb.
Every state is different about who can access the ballot box and how they can access the ballot box and what happens when you access the ballot box. So
she's not from the hood, goofy, Edwin, goofy. Wow, there's some racist shit in the chat. Wow, Edwin Cooper, racist in the chat. What the hell is going on? Go back to the hood. Why would she need to go back to the hood, Edwin Cooper? She ain't from the hood. Why would she need to do it? This is what I keep telling y'all about the Republicans. You say you ain't racist, but you say shit like this.
The best thing that I can tell you is that it's really important that you are up to speed with what takes place in your state. So states like California, they have a system where you're able to see that they've received your ballot. You're able to kind of check all of that out. You have other states that allow for the ability to kind of monitor in some way as they're going through the counting process. There's just a lot of different ways, but I can tell you that
I think your party, Harry Callahan, is on the chopping block this time. I think morally bankrupt would definitely describe your president. Most definitely.
Vote by mail is an option that I think, as many people that are able to vote by mail should always feel like it is a safe thing to do. Now, you got to know that the post office ain't necessarily the fastest. So I would say make sure if you're doing that, that you do it and you do it in plenty of time, but it's really convenient.
Yeah, this is really like going back to the hood. She's really acting hoodish right here. She really is acting hoodish. She's really acting hoodish right here. And you're using the race card. I didn't use the race card. You're using the race card. She's really acting hoodish right here.
For those of
This is your Republican Party throwing the race card in the mix when nobody was talking about race. He came in here and said she needs to go to the hood. Why? She's not talking hoodish. She's not acting ghetto. She's not doing any of those things. Why would she need to go back to the hood?
us that have to go to work, and we live in a state that doesn't make election day a holiday. So that's number one. So figure out kind of what it is in your state. Number two, about that, I would say, between now and election day, like the midterms, I think it's important to find out what other elections are taking place. So we know in different places, they've got city elections, they've got county elections, they've got state elections. So find out what's going on, and also decide to get engaged. I'm sitting online, I'm talking to y'all, and this is a form of engagement, but just know that like your skills, whatever they are useful no matter where you are in any campaign. So find a candidate that really kind of gets you going. What I'll say is that I was outspent when
the goofy said, why don't she go back to the hood? You mean to tell me there's white people in the hood? Or was he saying go back to the hood because that's what the stereotypical idiots think where black people stay? Because there's only 20% black people that are poor. Why don't you look up what the percentage of white people are that are poor? Because the bulk of black people aren't poor, and the bulk of black people don't come from the hood. So why would you need to say, go back to the hood, if you weren't trying to use the race card?
I first ran for the state house, and the one thing I couldn't be was outworked. And it wasn't me as an individual, it was a collective. And so we had over 300 volunteers for a state house race, which was unheard of. But these volunteers made it possible for us to beat back 5 times as much money, and it allowed us to really get our message across. So never ever doubt that you can put in enough. If it is participating with a campaign that is far away from you, or if it's participating in a campaign that is near you, we need people that can always be event planners. We need people that are graphic experts. We need people that are great on social media. We need people that can help us raise money. We need people to donate money. We need people to organize people on the grounds, organize people on the phones, organize people to send out text messages. We need all these things and more. So never doubt what it is that you can.
You ain't gaslighting me. That's your problem. That's your Republicans' problem. You can't gaslight me. I'm not going to be gaslit. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button, please, and thank you. We have content like this every day. I just brought back Rand Paul, the Epstein Island pictures, and the closeout on the election yesterday, and Jasmine Crockett, just to get a taste of what she was on her mind in X, Y, and Z, right? So we had no intention of doing another show after the first show, but this was just something that I popped out to do because I saw Rand Paul in an interview, and Rand Paul was saying that they committed murder. Okay, so it is what it is. We're not gonna what the heck is going on with the current administration, because the current administration is definitely in some trouble and some hot water. It is what it is, specifically Hegseth. But see, that's the problem when you have people who are incompetent. When you have people who are incompetent running the show, you have mistakes. And this Hegseth has been making mistakes ever since he got hired as the Department of Defense boss. So ever since he got hired, from the time that he did that robocall, I don't know what the hell it was. It was he let the war's plans out on a tweet or some garbage or something like that, talking to the whole military like he was their daddy, the whole nine. He's been making missteps since he got into office, since he got into that position. So when you have incompetent people running very important positions, this is what happens when you have those things. Okay? So they know that they messed up because they're trying to throw it on Bradley. They're trying to throw it on Bradley, and Bradley says, I have receipts. I don't know what y'all talking about, but I have receipts. So we're going to see what happens. I don't think anything is going to happen. I think Trump is going to make him resign. Trump is going to make him resign, and then he going to be out of there shamefully and gone. Because he never should have had the job in the first place. And the only reason why they confirmed it was because they all were afraid of Trump. Now Trump's approval rating is at 38%. His approval rating is way down. So since his approval rating is way down, some of the Republicans feel like they can get the hell out of there. They're going to quit. They're going to do whatever they got to do, but they're getting the hell out of there, and they're going to take Trump down. And that's Rand Paul. You see Rand Paul in front of a microphone? Rand Paul ain't letting it go. He's not letting it go. So we're going to see what happens as the weeks go ahead. We're going to see who is going to stand with the Constitution. We're going to see who stands with the Constitution or who stands with this very incompetent, radical Republican administration. But we will be back. We will be back.